Welcome to the University of Kentucky's Backyard Streams program. During this webinar, we will learn about ecosystem services, the link between a stream's physical components and its biologic ones, how riparian or streamside buffers provide ecological benefits, HYPORHEIC zones and their importance, and some of the impacts of different anthropogenic activities on streams. So what makes a stream a stream? There are several publications in the literature from agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as academics that seek to define the characteristics of a stream. When we think of a stream, no matter how large or small, we think of it as having a defined bed and a defined bank. This is opposed to overland flow where the water flow is very thin and sheet-like in layers. We also think of streams as having floodplains. Floodplains are the lands immediately adjacent to streams onto which floodwaters flow. Some streams have very large floodplains, such as the one in the top right, and others have very narrow floodplains. For streams located in mountainous areas, a defined floodplain can be quite small. Another important characteristic is the presence of water. We would not have a stream if we did not have water. For some streams, water flow is year-round. These streams are called perennial and have strong year-round connections to the water table. For other streams, water flow is only for part of the year when the water table is high and ceases to flow during drier parts of the year when the water table lowers. These streams are called intermittent. For ephemeral streams, water only flows in response to rain or snowmelt. These streams lack a connection to the water table. When water flows, sediment is transported. We often look for evidence of sediment movement in stream beds and immediately adjacent to the stream along floodplains. This evidence is often in the form of deposited fines such as sands. Sand is one of the first types of particles that move during a storm and one of the last to settle out. Lastly, living organisms are another indicator of the presence of streams. Some organisms, such as fish, must live in water year-round, while others, like salamanders, only spend a portion of their time in the water. Ecosystems are communities that consist of living or biotic things, such as plants and animals, as well as non-living or abiotic things, such as rocks, soil, water, and air. Ecosystems can be large, such as a forest, or small, such as a tiny pool. Streams, riparian buffers, and watersheds are all ecosystems that work together. What happens in a watershed can affect the health of streams and the riparian buffers. Each part of an ecosystem depends directly or indirectly on the other part. Ecosystems provide valuable services to society. Water quality is improved as water is filtered through soil, vegetation, and detritus, thus promoting the removal of nutrients, sediment, and other pollutants from runoff. Nutrient cycling involves actions such as transforming a constituent to a usable form, such as the case of organic nitrogen in manure to ammonium to nitrate, which plants can uptake, or removing pollutants from water, such as the transformation of nitrate to nitrogen gas through the process of denitrification. Trees and riparian areas supply organic matter in the form of leaves, twigs, and large woody debris. This organic matter serves as food, meaning an energy source or carbon source for aquatic organisms. Large woody debris can also serve as habitat whereby frogs and salamanders can hide within and lay their eggs. Trees, and for smaller streams, shrubs and grasses provide shade, which helps keep water temperatures cooler and hence dissolved oxygen levels higher. Placing a dollar amount on ecosystem services is challenging. but a 1997 study found that economic value of 17 ecosystem services averaged $33 trillion per year, a value that was nearly twice the global domestic product. Ecosystems, both large and small, contribute services to each other and to society. An important theory to understand when thinking about ecosystem services is the river continuum concept. The river continuum concept is a way of understanding how the general physical changes in streams, from headwaters to larger order streams, affects the structural and functional characteristic of stream communities such as fish and macroinvertebrates. This concept links fluviogeomorphic processes to macroinvertebrate functional feeding groups and types of fish. Vanote et al. Defined headwater streams as those of orders 1 to 3, medium-sized streams as orders 4 to 6, and large rivers as those of orders greater than 6. Headwater streams are strongly influenced by riparian vegetation in terms of shading and carbon inputs. As stream size increases, algal and rooted vascular plant production increases. At some point, the stream shifts from heterotrophic, meaning organisms getting their food from carbon inputs, to autotrophic, meaning organisms getting their food from photosynthesis. This shift is largely controlled by the degree of shading. On large rivers, riparian vegetation has minimal effect. Notice in the figure the area of the stream covered by riparian vegetation from the top or headwaters to the bottom or the large part of the stream. Another important point is that downstream communities are fashioned to capitalize on upstream processing inefficiencies. As organic matter such as leaves and wood are processed in the headwaters, finer particles flow downstream. This change in shading and hence water temperature and particulate matter size affects the organisms that live in the stream. In headwaters, shredders are more prevalent. Shredders utilize coarse particulate matter, that's stuff that's greater than 1 millimeter, such as leaves. Collectors are in about equal numbers of shredders in headwaters. Collectors filter and gather fine, such as 50 micron to 1 millimeter, and ultrafine or 0.5 to 50 micron particle sizes in the water and sediment. Moving down to medium-sized streams, grazers and collectors dominate with few shredders. Grazers or scrapers are organisms that remove algae from surfaces. In large rivers where the waters are deeper and more turbid, meaning primary production such as algae is limited, collectors dominate. Note that the proportion of predators does not change throughout the system. Lastly, let's look at fish. Cool water species such as trout are found in headwaters, while this transitions to more plankton-feeding species in large rivers. When thinking about streams, think about riparian buffers. Riparian or streamside buffers are located along the edge of waterways such as streams, rivers, or lakes. These buffers serve as the transition between water bodies and uplands. Riparian buffers differ in size largely due to anthropogenic influences in addition to topography. Such buffers can range in size from a few feet to several thousands of feet. Riparian buffers provide numerous benefits to both surface water and groundwater systems. Riparian buffers are typically comprised of 3 zones: a zone of fast or slow-growing water-tolerant trees located next to the edge of the water, a zone of shrubs located next to the trees, and a zone of grasses or forbs located adjacent to the uplands. The vegetation in riparian buffers offers a number of ecosystem benefits. The type and extent of benefits depends on the size of the buffer, land slopes, and vegetation type, among other things. Riparian buffers, particularly the grass component, can trap and filter sediments. This function is important not just from a sediment perspective, but also because a number of pollutants are sediment bound, meaning they are transported with sediment. By filtering sediment, other pollutants are also filtered out. The vegetation in riparian buffers helps to build and maintain stream banks. Vegetation with deep, thick roots helps to hold the stream bank soils in place. Such vegetation can also help accumulate sediments and woody debris on the floodplain. Riparian vegetation works to reduce and dissipate energy, not just along the stream banks, but also along the floodplains when the water exits the banks. Vegetation increases roughness, which slows flow. Riparian buffers also store water through features such as vernal ponds and wetlands, and help recharge aquifers. While vegetation helps transpire water, its roots also help loosen the soil, thereby allowing water to infiltrate more easily by flowing through macropores. Riparian buffers provide habitat to a number of creatures, such as frogs, salamanders, birds, and mammals. Buffers provide shelter and food and help to moderate temperatures, thus improving dissolved oxygen levels. From a societal perspective, riparian buffers provide benefits related to improved aesthetics and increased property values. As previously mentioned, the size and diversity of riparian buffers can differ markedly. One reason being anthropogenic influences. Human activities such as agriculture, as shown in the picture on the left, can reduce the size of riparian buffers. Urbanization, as seen in the photo on the right, can also hinder many of the functions of riparian buffers. In extreme cases, all vegetation can be removed from the riparian buffer, essentially removing it completely. Another important component of stream systems and riparian buffers is the hyporheic zone. The hyporheic zone is an area alongside the stream bed and banks that experiences bidirectional movement of water and dissolved solids. This means that surface waters and groundwaters mix within this zone. The arrows in figures A and B indicate the direction of water flow. In meandering systems, water can flow from the stream to the hyporheic zone before re-entering the stream. This concept is shown in figure B. In such instances, the hyporheic zone can provide water quality benefits. Within the hyporheic zone, many biological transformations, such as nitrification and denitrification, take place. This is because both aerobic and anaerobic microsites are present within the hyporheic zone. Dissolved nutrients, such as nitrates, are often provided by groundwater, while organic matter from leaves, think of the river continuum concept, and dissolved oxygen are supplied via surface waters. The significance of the hyporheic zone in improving water quality depends on the volume of water that flows through it, as well as retention time. How long the water stays within the hyporheic zone and in contact with soils and plant roots. The size of the hyporheic zone can vary considerably from a few feet to a few miles. Increasing the flow through the hyporheic zone will provide a water quality benefit. Riparian buffers support many ecological processes through carbon inputs in the form of leaves and twigs, large woody debris that can serve as habitat, hyporheic exchanges that can support habitat and improve water quality, and vernal ponds and seasonal wetlands. Seasonal water features such as vernal ponds, as shown in the photo here, and seasonal wetlands are great habitat for frogs and salamanders. These water features serve as reproductive areas for these creatures, and because they dry out, fish cannot survive and thus eat their eggs. When enhancing or restoring a stream in its riparian area, think of the habitat requirements that you will need to create, enhance, or restore. Think of what species you are trying to support. What type of habitat do these species require? In essence, aquatic species require water, oxygen, food, shelter, and an environment in which to grow and reproduce. When thinking about ecosystem services, it's important to understand how anthropogenic activities within a watershed can disrupt ecosystems. A few examples especially relevant to Kentucky are agriculture, urbanization, low-head dams, invasive plants, and loss of pollinator habitat. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has identified agriculture as the leading cause of impairment to our nation's waters. So why is this? One example is with animal agriculture. Cattle, for instance, will stand in streams if access is not limited. With unlimited access to the stream to drink and loaf, there's a high probability cattle will urinate and defecate in the water, thereby adding pathogens and nutrients to the stream. As cattle enter and exit the stream, they trample the banks and compact riparian soils. Vegetation is also removed through grazing and trampling. These activities lead to increased sediment loads being supplied to the stream. Increases in impervious areas, such as buildings, parking lots, and roads, leads to increases in runoff volumes and peak discharges. Runoff is more quickly routed to streams through the pipes that comprise the storm sewer system. Less water is available to infiltrate into soils. Likewise, water quality also decreases as water runs across these surfaces where it picks up pollutants such as nutrients, pathogens, sediments, and even metals. Encroachment within the floodplain limits floodplain access as well as the growth of riparian vegetation. Invasive species such as bush honeysuckle and winter creeper are common along many of Kentucky's urban streams. These invasive plants choke out many of the native plants, reducing biodiversity. Dams can be small, such as low-head dams or mill dams, or larger like the ones at reservoirs. Because dams create a backwater zone, conditions are ideal for sediments and sediment-bound pollutants to deposit behind these structures. Stream reaches downstream of dams also undergo changes. Flows and sediments that were once supplied to downstream reaches are diminished, causing these streams to adjust. Habitats are also transformed as streams which are lotic or flowing systems are changed to lentic or lake-like systems. Invasive plants are common in urban settings. Invasive plants choke out native plants, thereby reducing biodiversity. Removal of invasive plants, such as winter creeper and bush honeysuckle, is a difficult and labor-intensive task. Whether in urban or agricultural settings, many anthropogenic activities result in the loss of pollinator habitat, particularly along stream corridors. Restoration of stream corridors provides an opportunity to incorporate plants suitable for pollinators, such as butterflies and bees. Thank you for completing this webinar on ecosystem services. To learn more about ecosystem services, check out the publications and additional information sections. For additional information on backyard streams, visit www.uky.edu/BAE/backyard streams.